Okay. Al Blair, District Engineer, what do we got, Al?
We're finishing up the allocation calculations are not due this week. We just, a few hours ago, finally got reclamations data from the amount of water released by Caballo, so that's
Okay.
a little frustrating, I have to wait so long for that. But so I went ahead and did a preliminary analysis on it. It's, and of course, we don't allocate water, and probably won't allocate water for next year until fairly late in the year. But based on sort of a worst case scenario, it would be, next year would be very similar to 2013, which was a 6-inch allocation and 45 days of irrigation. That's, again, the worst case. As you guys know, we can't forecast this basin because it's too erratic, and so we don't even try to make reasonable estimates of snow melt until February, and then often it's April. Or last year we didn't allocate until May, I think, even on that year. So I think I can, with some certainty, we can say that we are going to release next year. That we do have an opportunity to release.
Golly, gee, thanks. Yeah.
It's not, and it would be 2013.
13 was a bad year. Yeah.
Yeah, it was sort of the worst year on, one of the worst years on record.
We're getting a lot of these.
More water now than there was last year, right, in storage?
It's about the same. It's in the,
A little more snowpack, but not much.
yeah, we can't use,
Yeah,
there's no forecasting of any accuracy.
I noticed everything's been riding over it again. I remember that.
Yeah, we're at a high pressure right now. So I guess that's weird. So the terrible news is sort of good news. It's like we will be able to release, because we were pretty nervous about it. It'll be the first time in the history of the project we couldn't release water.
Oh, boy.
And so we just got that done just last night, or late last night, but it's not ready to distribute or anything. That will have to wait till we finalize this year's. And most of that water that came in was the water that we didn't, came in late in this year, so we weren't able to use it this year from the monsoons and some other activity. And so really, right now, we're getting about 400 acre-feet a day into the reservoir, but once the evaporation's low now, it'll get lower in the winter, but it'll pick back up, of course, in the spring. And so part of that, about 25% of that, we're holding back, at least in estimates for evaporation. But all that put together, that just gets us to 160,000 acre-feet to release, which is what we did in 2013. But hopefully, it's the only way we can go is better, right? So each month I come, I can say maybe it's a little bit better on doing that.
On a happy note, that gives Pete a little bit more time to work on these
Drains. Yeah.
projects that we have going on.
Well, the tornado drain, as Pete knows, by Art Ivy's house is about the lowest it's been in a long time.
Yeah.
So that's not a good sign. When I see that. Talking about the water,
Right.
not talking about the height of the trees.
Right.
Okay.
Hopefully, the city, El Paso Water will be through with their project in, by the first week of December.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Al and I need to meet with John Baloo and discuss the cleanups afterwards to our canal.
Well, I was right, that spell made a Bravo last meeting, but they hadn't made it yet, about a day after that, yeah. When we get those drifts out of there, it's bad when the drift's bad in the morning, but my house is a little further than our headquarters, so where I go to start the farm every day, it's been bad for the last week, just enough drift coming out of the south to the north.
You're pretty close to it now by your gas tank, so.
But my house is, it was there at my house today and yesterday, 2 days in a row, but, yeah, because I'm just a little further up. Depends on where you are along there and which direction that morning drift goes.
So we anticipate, and hopefully, we have no way to predict whether they'll actually have everything repaired on December 2nd, but that's what they're targeting.
Yeah.
With knowing most construction projects, we immediately add 2 to 4 weeks to it. Just if they say the 2nd, that means January 2nd. But hopefully it'll be done, and we expect, since it's going to be a government cleanup, but John will have contractors to do it, that it would happen fairly quickly.
I know they
30
had,
days.
they had TCEQ and
EPA.
EPA in here yesterday touring and looking it over, and I had a couple of tours last week. I had State Senator Blanco and his staff that wanted to look at it, and then I also had Commissioner Stout and his staff that wanted to look at it. So there's a lot of interest, but like I told them, you know, doing everything possible to help El Paso Water get through this.
Well, you know, they're gonna clean up as best they can, I'm sure, but then the ultimate will be a flush. Hopefully we get
Yeah.
enough water.
Yeah, for the whole thing down to your place, we'll need a flood.
We'll need a flush.
We only have to clean up, for us to go back operational, about 3 miles.
Okay.
And that's why I think that once it stops, that we could anticipate by, Robert and I talked about by February 1st, anything you guys talked about, February 1st, we should be able to put return flows back in.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. But I guess the biggest, Pete and I talked, and Robert talked about this yesterday, will be the settling basin cleanup.
Yeah, that one needed cleaning prior to this contamination, but now we want the entire thing cleaned. But again, if it was just federal deployment, we think there'd be more time involved, but this is gonna be, the city of El Paso is gonna deploy onto federal property. So I think they'll be able to clean it pretty fast. I hope.
And disinfect and,
It'll naturally disinfect, and they can just remove the bulk, they can get all this contaminated sediment out and all the debris. It's gonna clean up pretty fast. There isn't gonna be much left. It'll oxidize. I don't know if they're gonna try to chlorinate it, I wouldn't think so, but it would probably be a waste, but just exposing it to the oxygen is gonna, if we move the mass.
Yeah.
we're okay.
the majority of our constituents have been very understanding and realize the impact. We've had a few that still don't understand what the impacts could be if we were to bring that water into our systems, into our canal system, and the odor that it would cause in our neighborhoods. So we only had one that irrigates off the riverside that really complained. So Robert dealt with it with him, and I dealt with him. So hopefully he understands now. This was nothing that we caused, or it couldn't have been prevented at the time.
A lot of times we don't have a say on those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just, again, it's a strange way to count your blessings, but we're so fortunate that it happened after the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're towards the tail end because we shut off.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, about
We were just
a
winding
couple of
down.
weeks.
Yeah.
We could have extended it a couple of weeks, and we had to shut it down immediately.
Hey, Al, in anticipation of the efforts that we're doing with the city of El Paso, and that's great that we're doing what we're doing, but in the worst case scenario, the conversations are happening within the city of El Paso and their engineering firm, whoever that may be, or whoever the contractor is, whoever the consultants are. Have they made the discussion or specific questions as to what, if the federal agency is going to be making that determination as to what extent is the cleanup requirement? And if so, the timeline and all that's involved, have we made those direct, tough questions to the city of El Paso?
Well, yeah, we've had some pretty detailed one now. Of course, all that's premature because the first time, you can't clean up before the spill stops. Obviously.
Right, but we know what's going in there. And we know that there's in water in migration and infiltration. To what extent is the federal government going to require the cleanup?
Oh, that's a different question. Right now, we're not involved with the federal government. We're setting our own standards on our facilities. Like I said, we only have 2.5 miles, 3 miles of our facilities that have to be decontaminated. So we'll work, John's been really good to work with. And we'll make sure that that's done in an expedited manner and that it's done adequately. The issues in terms of, first of all, it's, to put it in perspective, these are not industrial waste primarily. There's a little bit of that, but not very much. But there'll be a complete survey of the area, and so we'll just have to wait for that process. Our biggest concern, my biggest single concern is are they gonna get it shut off by December 2nd? There's nothing, nothing we can do about that, other than wait. And then once it's shut off, we can get in there and assess the situation. But first one, remove, in all contamination situations, first thing is to remove the mass, remove the whatever accumulated debris and particulate there is, and so we'll insist upon that. And then the question of using chlorination and other things like that, we'll have to discuss that at the time, once we get the mass removed, on doing it. But historically, we've had other sewage bills, haven't we?
Yeah,
So we've had some experience.
Not this big.
yeah, not this much, but
Not this long.
yeah, like I say, EPA and TCEQ were here yesterday in force, meeting with El Paso Water. So
Yeah, no.
Al and I discussed it, we stayed away from it because it's their issue.
So keeping it out of ours was our issue. We did a pretty good job of keeping it out. We were in pretty good shape to decontaminate.
So it's very minimal for what we're exposed. That's
Yeah,
very minimal.
we did that early on, when we always got together and cut the season 2 weeks short and all that.
Well, Chewy was very good in helping the city too. I mean, and the city has acknowledged that.
Yeah, we set up,
We
my
tried to be good neighbors.
invoices are tracked separately and all of our employees are tracked. We set up all new accounts, right, Mary?
Yeah, Mary's been tracking everything. Pete's been very good at
So it's 100%.
keeping track of everything, fuel, equipment, vehicles, manpower and all that we're assisting with.
That includes capital recovery, because we load all of our, with replacement costs, so the wear and tear on the pump is being paid for and everything. So, in fact, John was a little nervous about the bill we'd be setting him. I said, well, it is what it is, We're not, as I said, if anybody can do it at a reasonable price, we're using standard government rates. There's no profit, there's no piling on or anything like that. So I just told them it is what it's gonna be. It's, we only are doing what's necessary to help them out, right?
And I think they've been appreciative.
Yeah.
Until they get that bill. Now, what else you got?
That's it.
Okay.
We'll talk about the rest of the closed session.
All right. That leaves Pete, or leads to Pete.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we're closing down our mowing season. We're just gonna be having the mowers out there for the drains. Other than that, all mowers are being already serviced and getting ready for next year. We've only got one herbicide truck out there running, and so we've already parked the other two. And like Mr. Reyes said, Monday we'll be heading out to Lubbock to pick up that other herbicide. And unfortunately, it's a little too late to use it this year, but it'll be ready to go by next year.
You going up to Wiley?
Yes.
Are they the ones?
Yes.
Okay.
And just a couple of pictures of, these are drains within the city of El Paso. I've got the, you got it?
It's in my office.
Oh, it's in your office?
It's in my office.
We'll go through it pretty quick now.
Okay, right?
Let me go
Yeah,
get it.
let's go.
No, I'll do it.
Do you need me to
Yeah,
go get
these
it?
next pictures are just the city of El Paso, just some kind of before and after pictures, just to kind of show you that we're still out there on those city drains. This is over by the Franklin Drain. Just kind of some finished pictures there, over by Sunland Park. And again, all this will be under the city project, which we'll get reimbursed for. And then we got some of our drains, these are a couple of washouts that we've had, and you'll notice in the next picture, the amount of sand that I'm having to pull out of that drain. We actually lost that drain back into the drain there, and so that's been fixed. We've had a couple of those.
You know the day that occurred? You know what day of the year?
This occurred last month though. Well, actually, last month we cleaned up. It actually occurred about 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
Yes.
That's the Alamo Alto piece?
No, that's the excuse me, it's in Fadens.
can't see, it's.
No, I'm just trying to remember where the, it's the island drain, I'm sorry. I got a blank there. It's the island drain, you can see the water, how it's stacking up behind,
Blame it on COVID.
right?
Everybody else did.
This is more the middle drain. Just some before and after pictures.
Wow.
That's also the middle drain right behind the utility trainers.
So how come South Cedar doesn't make good firewood?
What do you do with all that brush?
We pretty much just bring it back into the banks to try to stabilize the banks wherever we have washouts and stuff. So we'll bring it into, then we'll put spoil on top of it. Yeah, it's just quite a bit to haul it all off.
It'll decompose over time.
Yes, yes. And then some of our washouts that we're still dealing with from the rains back in June. And then here, we're actually installing a pipe. I use a pipe to make a crossing over the river drain. This is being done so we can get the concrete trucks once we get started on the shotcrete on the riverside. The trucks will not make the turn over the bridge, so we're actually having to make a temporary bridge for them.
You know, water in the river drain, interceptor?
Very little now.
Doesn't look like we have a weed problem there.
No, well, there was, but it was cleared out before we did
It's
this.
no water.
And then this is the expansion of the culvert that I did for Mr. Theodis. He did pay for the work to be done. This is to his shop. It was only a 20-foot crossing, so he wanted to expand it a little bit more to get his equipment in there. We used some of our old pipe that we had at the Fabian's yard and expanded the culvert up to, it is now almost 40 feet wide. It is on the Chris one. And this is crossing after it's been completed. That's the same crossing. And then here, we're already preparing for shotcrete. These are the capital projects that we're doing for the state of El Paso, where we go in there and shotcrete the mouth and the outlet of the pipe. This is right below Borderman Road, or actually Gomez Road, I'm sorry, on the Borderman spur drain. Unfortunately, these drains have water, so we had to make the bancos to be able to go in there and do the concrete on the floor and the bottom half.
Makes a world of difference what you've done out there.
It looks good.
Real good. Function. So,
That's what it looks like after we're completed with it. That's the downstream side. And then same thing on the Nomexis drain by Heritage Farms. This one also was paid by Heritage Farms and by the city of El Paso. This one's also been completed, so we're ready to start charging these out. Here we got the east level where we're preparing for the shotcrete. This is the 3,000 feet that we got a grant for. We'll be starting on the concrete work by Monday. Monday we'll be shooting about 1,000 feet of canal already. And they're still working on the other 2,000. This is the Isla Battle. One of the main reasons, as you can see, by there's homes on both sides. We've got a school right there on the right-hand side. So this was a perfect candidate for this.
And this is phase 4?
Yes.
Continuation of the east
Of
line?
the East Lane, yes. So the liner's been put in already. We've got about 600 feet of liner put in. They're working on another 300 should be ready by tomorrow. And then start Monday morning, we'll be shooting out there. We should be able to complete these 1,000 feet. I'm thinking with the concrete, it should take us about 4 days to do about 1,000 feet. 3.5 days. So it goes pretty fast. And that's pretty much all I got.
Very good.
Any questions?
Pete, Have you kind of figured how much you save with that concrete? Are you guys, after you got it concrete, maintenance goes down quite a bit, or?
Yes, quite a bit, yeah, because this area here, all we'll have to concentrate is the top of the banks and the outer banks on mowing.
Right.
We won't have to do anything to the inside. Then the way Al designed this thing is he narrowed it to where we'll have very minimal accumulation of sand in the bottom. It'll just flush out. Once we're done with this section here, we're pretty much lined all the way past Los Hermanos, right to that farm. And this is right here, Farmwood Road.
It's good, I've driven down there and seen it, it's really good. How we do that.
These guys keep getting better. Every year they get a little bit better, a little bit faster.
Doing a good job.
Thank you.
Back to, Al, going back to the question I asked a while back. Before the lining, we've done X amount of miles of lining now. I'm sure, going back to historical, can we do a comparative analysis of before lining to present day lining and see if there's some way of putting some value into what the questions that George just mentioned, or Larry?
Well, yeah, I think
What it is,
you can have a
it's
lot of
real
assumptions.
numbers.
Yeah.
So real numbers, not just, you know, theory numbers.
I don't know, I'd have to work with Mary to see how much is itemized in terms of each project. I know a lot of these are grants now, whereas before they weren't, so we do that. We've done, I don't know, just getting with Chewy, it depends on if you count the American Canal Extension, which was a $100 million project, but we've done $170 million worth of projects in the last 45 years.
Well, I'm just thinking about the lining, because we were starting to self-perform our work.
Those are all, I mean, all
The
lining.
big debate was, are we gonna do it, are we gonna outsource it, or are we gonna spend the money on the maintenance?
So we
And that was the
spent,
question we had about 7 or 8 years ago, even 10 years ago. And then we started doing it, now we have X amount of lining. I'm just curious, for the sake, for my constituents, to tell them, hey, you know what, we spend this much money. We were spending this much in maintenance, now we're not spending this much in maintenance.
I don't know, that would be something for Mary to be able to try to do. I don't have access to that.
We do have a good idea of what we're saving in water, and, but we haven't put a pencil to the maintenance yet.
There's two types of projects. There's this one actually, Pete, I think is not an engineered project, right? I mean, I don't really.
No, it's not.
So there's two types of projects. I don't get involved in the non-engineered. Those are typically the smaller laterals, this size, and other ones. Pete's got the technology down.
But you
The
did
board's
give us-
never.
You gave us the footprint that the.
Yeah, we
Right.
we work with the cross sections, yeah, but that's it. I mean, just because it has to do just with changing from everything out to concrete. It's not, we don't design it, we didn't survey it, we didn't do any drawings for it, I didn't do any reports on it. And we haven't done a comprehensive report. I'm sure the board could instruct us, the district, to work on that. It would be a fairly big undertaking. Like I say, it's $175 million worth of lining is how much we've done in the.
You know, in my opinion,
Times
Al, on
inside
this
the-
right here, and I think Art would say the same thing, when we get a farm, that's the first thing we want to do, right, Art?
Yeah.
Because we see the difference.
Mhm.
I mean, it is drastic.
Right.
It's drastic. It's drastic. You don't got no more backhoes covering holes, you got this, your water efficiency, the water moves faster,
Right.
you improve your irrigation, you cut down hours, and I think you're seeing the same thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Pete?
Definitely.
And I understand that, but the elephant in the room is how much? I mean, I know it's a lot, but I'd just like to have an idea. It doesn't require a major study. I'm thinking it's just a quick round wag number. I mean, give me an idea.
On the maintenance portion of it, this area here is mowed approximately about 6 times a year. Okay, with 2 mowers. And this area here will have to go through it at least 4 passes. Okay, so just if you look at it, 2 mowers, 4 passes. It'll take us approximately a day to complete the 4 passes.
So it
How
just-
much is the more right now, and then you get the salary of the employee and start adding all this up, so it will equate to
So we're
quite a bit.
spending what appears to be a lot of money, but it's really depends on the dollar, based on the savings that we're making now, you know, maintenance, water delivery, all that. It just blows my mind how much in the savings.
I think those numbers are in some of the grants, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we
I've worked out numbers from there in the grants, so maybe talk to
Okay.
of
Maybe
those.
that's all it takes. I mean, I'm just
Yeah, they want us to do that. I don't do these, I mean, but those, so that was good, but I still think Omar works up some numbers for these, so. Some, I mean, just, you know, word of caution, some of the canals leak significant amount of water, like the Riverside, and some don't, right? Some of our canals, because of our water quality, are pretty well sealed up. So you guys know which ones I'm talking about, like, we know like an island feeder at least, because it also has to do what the canal was built out of. They're all built out of native material.
Whatever was there.
Yeah.
Plus,
whatever was
peace of
there.
mind that you're never gonna flood a home out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, yeah, those are hard things to
Just
put
the-
numbers on.
Pluses.
Tangent.
Or a business.
Right.
I will tell you, like, just on the Riverside Canal alone, where Pete would have to send his men in there to mow it 5-6 times a year. We go through it maybe once, right, Pete?
Once or twice, yes.
The
And
bank,
less herbicide.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of the things that, you know, that we just, since the software's been in place, what, just 3 years now? And you were just now finally getting enough numbers, 4 years to, well, the first year was a little rough.
And
So 3 years.
Just as a good example, the area that we did up here by Presa, the Franklin Canal, that the left side was used as a walking trail.
Right.
I did not have to go in there in the left bank, not once this year.
Save it for another battle, somewhere else.
The other thing is, which I'd be interested in, we haven't totaled it up because Chu and I needed it somewhat for other reasons, was for PR reasons like you're doing, is just, you know, almost, so like the biggest project we ever did was the American Canal Extension. So it was, we paid $5 million and it was, I think the initial appropriation was $47 million, right? It ended up being, had 2 appropriations. But let's say that it was just 52 million, and that, you know, that was 95% or 90% grant, right? And then most of ours have been in the 50 to 100% grants, right?
Right.
It'd be nice to go back and see out of that, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars we spent, how much of we actually had to spend from the taxpayers on it. And I know the first, and I'm not the family bird is, I think nobody's here, Johnny, maybe Johnny's the only one, if you can hear me, was the lateral lining project with reclamation. I know we did a bond on that, it was our last bond in the
Yeah,
'70s.
It was called the R&B, or Rehabilitation and Betterment Program, back in the late '70s, early '80s. A few of the smaller canals, or laterals, were lined at the time. In fact, that's how I started working on reclamation, was designing those.
That was, I think, our first big effort as a district,
Yeah.
did canal lining. And I don't know how many miles, you know how much was lined there?
Can't recall. I know the big problem we had back then was with inflation, we had 12% a year.
Oh, yeah.
So that ate up a lot of the funding of the district.
That was done here in this valley, these canals that got lined?
Is that-
Was it these canals that are lined here in the valley, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would,
The couple, several,
Yeah.
couple?
Both, I think they're pipeline work in the Upper Valley.
you know, the Stevens up in the Upper Valley, and Schutzweiler was one of them, we were part of the Clint.
Yeah, 341, that.
Right,
There's sort of one that's on.
Guadalupe.
And I guess Robert can tell you that his men have adjusted because the water flows so fast down that where it used to take them 3 or 4 days to get the water down to the tail end, now it's, you know, an hour and a day and a half and it's there. And so they've had to adjust on how to operate and how to adjust gates and so on and move a little faster than what they were used to.
The savings on the water?
Yeah, because of the
That's
concrete
another
lining.
factor there too.
Yeah, and it's a combination. The automatic gate system allowed us to move water a lot faster too, so, automatic regulation. You can push it harder and let it take care of the problems. I mean, how's it work? We haven't overtopped your ditch, have we? He's at the end of that whole system. So, it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And we've got some funding, since you mentioned the torneo, we've got some funding coming in from
Cut
TxDOT
here.
to do an area
On the tornado?
on the torneo.
Donde?
It's towards the tail end.
Oh, I like to hear that. Yeah, where's the tail? I'm probably thinking about where those arroyos kept washing out below check 20.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
nothing we can do about that, kid.
Yeah.
Well, we can build it, no.
That's an act of nature. I mean, unless you're gonna.
Well, we could do a pond up above it, at least something, in SCS ponds.
But that's in Hudspeth County?
No, it's still in El Paso.
No,
That's
it's
right
right,
at that point.
It's on state land, it's, we just have to give permission. to
That's
state.
probably state land. I don't really know. I don't know who owns it.
I think it's all state land up there. All that tornado brush, all that weeded area there by the railroad track, so. If we get a pond up there, just a bulldozer pond, nothing bad.
Yeah,
Would
the
help.
old stock ponds.
That way, if you fill that up, then we'd have to clean it.
And then we had to go in there twice this year to help Danny
Yeah, I remember.
clean it out.
It was Husband's responsibility, but, well, no, you're talking about on the other side of the county line. So remember, there was a lot on this side of
Yeah.
the county line.
No, he's been on this side of the county.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
2 times. yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't go down. Once
No, it
it's,
didn't
once
go
it,
down below.
those are his, he has to take care of those.
Okay.
No, and I don't think nothing happened down there.
Right.
Yeah, there was one just
Yeah, there was,
right past the county line.
yeah, there
Another
was one that was,
couple hundred yards.
there was one that
They
was
did it
pretty
again.
bad.
Yeah.
It actually washed into 5R
Right.
farmland and so on.
Well,
He's
the
not-
car is
he's-
still up.
He's stuck it over the hill.
I'm talking about over the hill,
Oh,
over
over
the
the
down
hill.
into Husband County, over the lake, about 200 yards is all. Where Gale cars got slammed, it did the same thing over there. You know, before you get to the old,
At the start of their regulating reservoir.
Yeah, half that reservoir is in El Paso County, right?
yeah, yeah, a whole lot of it is in El Paso.
I never understood that jog there, that county line goes straight, and comes down.
They made that strange little jog, yeah, very strange.
But something, there's some history about that.
Yeah, but I don't even know. All right, let me go here. Robert,
I don't have nothing, Art. No water,
no water, no nothing?
nothing today.
Okay. Ni un pulgada.
Just shitty water.
Okay, all right. And let me see, I think, well, here's an application for a license. Okay, application for license, tab 13. And who's gonna address that? Bert gonna address
Yeah, I can
that?
go ahead and do that. But
Okay.
We've only got one application for a license.
Okay.
That came through for this month. It's for the city of El Paso Waters, a sewer line, orange steel sewer line casing on the Montoya main lateral near Montoya Road.
Okay. All right, you reviewed everything and it looks good?
Looks good, yeah.
Recommend approval?
I do.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve application 3040?
So moved, I make the motion.
Second.
Larry makes a motion, George seconds, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, same sign? Okay. It appeared, that's it, we're going into closed session. All right. And we will go out of open session at about 10:20. And then we're going into closed session.